Hi, and welcome to the second video on working with classes. In this video, we're going to talk only about how to overload constructors. And that's because you can have more than one constructor in a class definition, just depending on what you need. So let me demonstrate how that works. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a class called stock item that will keep track of items that are in an inventory of a store. So in our private section, we're going to have the name of the stock item and an on-hand variable to represent how many items we have on hand in our inventory. And we're going to keep it simple, so we'll just have those two. So that's our private section. In our public section, we're going to first have a constructor that has the name and the number of items that we have of that item. So we're going to say name gets the name, on hand gets num items. Now let's also add down below a display member function so that we can see what we have. Well, let's stop it right there. Okay, so let's jump down to our main program and let's check our first constructor. So we have a widget, and let's say we have 10 in stock. So we can do item 1 display, and hopefully our program will run without any errors. Whoops. Oh, I see what I did. I probably jinxed myself by saying hopefully. But on the other hand, I did make a mistake. Didn't capitalize the I. Let's try it again. So there we go. So the item is a widget and the count is 10. Okay, very good. Now, maybe we want to create an item that is going to be in our inventory, but at the current time, there aren't any. So we're going to do something very similar, but this time we're only going to have one parameter. So this time, we're able to overload the stock item constructor by providing a definition that just has one parameter, so that the stock item gets a name, and then we're going to automatically assign 0 to on hand. So now let's look at how we would call that. Let's create a new item. And we'll say this is just, I don't know, a chair. And let's put a new line between our two displays, like so. Okay, so let's run it. Oops. No. So my problem today is just typographical errors. Try it again. There we go. So let's put it where we can see our code along with our output. So our first constructor still works, widget with a count of 10. Then our second constructor, the compiler automatically matches the arguments with a constructor with the same parameters, and so we have a chair with a count of 0. Now we might also want to create an empty stock item. Not sure why, but we might want to. So we can do that by creating what's called a default constructor. And a default constructor simply sets the elements to the default value for that data type. For string and name, that's empty string. For on hand, which is an int, that's 0, as we already saw here although that's not really a default. We weren't talking about this as a default type. I mean a default value, but it is. So let's create a third item, stock item, item 3. And notice I don't need anything for an argument because I don't know what it's going to be yet. And then when we run that, whoops, we didn't put a new line. Let's put a new line. Okay, try it again. There we go. So item is blank, count is 0. So let's wrap up by talking about what we've done. I've demonstrated how to overload the class constructors. And you can have a constructor definition for as many different combinations of parameters as you can have. So in this case, because we only have 2 member variables, I can have a constructor that sets both of them, or I can have a constructor that sets just one of them. It would have to be either the name or the number of items on hand, and of course the name makes more sense. Or I can have what's called a default constructor. Let me add that, which sets all the member variables to their default values for that data type. So this leads into a question. If you create an element with the default constructor, an object with the default constructor, how do you eventually add data into that? Well, that's going to be the subject of my next video when I demonstrate how to create what are called getters and setters. And to answer my specific question, we'll use a setter to set the item name and the count. So I'll see you in that video later on.